Hello and welcome. I'm Pranay Upadhyay and you are watching India Today Global. Let me start this bulletin with Trump tariff. The US Supreme Court has ruled President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs are illegal, leading Customs and Border Protection to stop collecting them from February 24th, that is from today. But the decision does not clarify that an estimated of $175 billion duties, how they were collected as tariffs and how they will be refunded. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has quickly introduced the new tariffs under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. Initially at 10%, but later President Donald Trump raised it to 15% for up to 150 days. Meanwhile, the Senate Democrats are pushing legislation to ensure refunds, and also the biggest shipping company of the United States, FedEx, has filed a lawsuit seeking repayments.
After the US Supreme Court deemed President Trump's sweeping global tariff as illegal, US Customs and Border Protection, also called the CBP, will stop the collection of tariffs effective from, on or after 12 a.m. Eastern Time on February 24th. The tariffs were imposed after Trump invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Pact. Also, the newly imposed 15% global tariffs under Section 122 also comes into effect from February 24th. But the CBP notification issued only mentions imposition of 10% tariffs under Section 122. The US Supreme Court's ruling that came on February 28th does not specify how the US would refund an estimated $175 billion to importers. The Trump administration criticized the ruling and immediately imposed a new global tariff of 10% by invoking Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. The tariff was later increased to 15% and can remain in effect till 150 days and will later require approval from the Congress if extended. Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 allows the US President to impose tariffs of up to 15% on a country to address a large and serious United States balance of payments deficit. This provision has not been imposed before. Meanwhile, a group of 22 Senate Democrats have introduced a legislation requiring full refunds of any tariffs deemed illegal to be processed within 180 days. After the SC ruling, shipping conglomerate FedEx became the first company to sue the Trump administration for a full refund of duties paid. Trump, in a post on Truth Social, warned that if any country wanted to play games due to the ruling, they would face much higher tariffs. For India, the ruling is viewed as particularly positive, with about 55% of Indian exports now facing just 15% from much higher prior levels. The meeting between Indian and US negotiators has, however, been postponed following the ruling. According to the court ruling, the Department of Justice said that the refund would be initiated if the tariffs were deemed unlawful and the CBP would process it through automated commercial environment system. But no actual time for the refund has been slated and experts say it could be delayed.
We are happily invited.
With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
And now to discuss the latest twist and turn of President Donald Trump's tariff policies, I'm being joined by Sital Kalantry, Professor of Law at Seattle University. Seetal, welcome to India Today Global.
Thank you so much.
My first question to you, Seetal. The Supreme Court just killed the old EPA tariffs. President Donald Trump switched to Section 122 and slapped a new global tariff system starting today. But there is still confusion, and the official documents say it's 10%, but President Donald Trump talked about 15%. So how much does flip-flop, hurt American credibility when they are negotiating a trade deal, especially with partners like India? And legally, does this new move hold up, or we are heading towards another big court fight between White House and the judges?
One thing that's predictable about our policies is that they're unpredictable. I think President Trump's statement of 15% clearly didn't come through in the actual policies. So I think we ought to now go with the 10% number of Section 122 taxes. Your second question is, are we in for another court battle? On some issues we are, and other issues less likely. So Section 122 clearly does give the president authority to impose up to 15% global tariff without congressional approval, yet he has 150 days for that blank check. So in 150 days, if Congress does not act to authorize his tariff under 122, it will expire.
But Seetal, President Donald Trump said that he doesn't require a congressional approval. And in fact, if you see, he is insisting that, and in fact, you see his language, that he's in fact threatening other countries that dare you mess with these, the Supreme Court ruling, or dare you mess with the tariffs.
That is true with respect to some provisions. So take, for example, Section 232 under a different trade act that allows the president, with an investigation through the Commerce Department, to impose up to 50% tariffs even on goods that are viewed to be threatening of national security. So in some cases, yes, he doesn't need congressional approval, but in under other sections, he absolutely does.
From India's point of view, it looks like good, because most exports now face just 10% instead of the much higher targeted duties. Does that give New Delhi a stronger card to play in the bilateral trade talks, or is this only a temporary nature of these tariffs still a headache? And for India, this looks a positive news. How India should perceive this thing, and how will it pan out in the bilateral trade negotiation between India and the United States?
Well, initially on April 2nd of last year, he imposed 26% tariff, as you know, on India, and that, the Supreme Court ruled, was not in line with the statute. So that got invalidated with the US Supreme Court decision, but now that's replaced with this 10% temporarily for 150 days. So overall, what is good news for India actually is the delay in the trade negotiations, because for some countries, they've already signed a bilateral trade deal that have tariffs higher than 10%. So currently, it's an interim deal. And if India has to tread lightly, of course, because as I said, Trump has other tools that he could use should he not appreciate that India is trying to significantly change what was agreed to. But clearly, this gives India more leverage. But as I have felt, India should cautiously take this leverage and move forward with.
So you would advise India, wait and watch.
Definitely a wait and watch. They've already delayed their new negotiations. I think overall this is good news for India.
Thank you very much, Seetal, for sharing these thoughts and perspective on the tariff and President Donald Trump's policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Pranay.
And moving on, let's talk about another policy issue of President Donald Trump, and that is pertaining to Iran. President Donald Trump says he is considering a military strike on Iran ahead of the fresh US-Iran talks in Geneva mediated by Oman. He dismissed claim that America's top military leadership opposed war and asserted that a conflict could be easily won. Mahashweta Lala with this report.
Mr. President, are you considering a limited military strike to pressure Iran to Israel? Thank you, President.
I can say I am considering it.
With the next round of talks between the US and Iran slated for Thursday in Geneva, with Oman mediating, President Donald Trump has not ruled out the using of military force against Iran. In a post on Truth Social, Trump has rubbished all claims that Joint US Chiefs of Staff General Daniel Kane is against war with Iran. Trump in fact boasted in his post that the war can be easily won. As tension and uncertainty over a possible war looms large, amid high-stakes talk in Geneva, the US carrier Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, has made a stop at a NATO base on the island of Crete in Greece before heading to the Middle East. It will join the US carrier Abraham Lincoln. Several guided missile destroyers, fighter jets, and surveillance aircraft that have been moved to the Middle East in recent weeks. But some reports suggest that the carrier faces sewage system failures since January when it was deployed in the Caribbean. The Gerald R. Ford, the United States' newest and the world's largest carrier, has a nuclear reactor on board, can hold more than 75 military aircrafts, including fighter aircrafts like F-18 Super Hornet jet and E-2 Hawkeye, which can act as an early warning system. The Ford also has sophisticated radar that can help control air traffic and navigation. It was commissioned in 2017 at the cost of $13 billion. Trump had earlier threatened Iran with military attacks if peaceful Iranian protesters were punished. He said it would be a very bad day if a deal were not reached. Iran has consistently maintained that it was not pursuing nuclear weapons for mass destruction, but for civil purposes and for the benefit of the Iranians.
ایران بدون توجه به این تهدیدات
Regardless of these threats, Iran is committed to defending the national interests and rights of the Iranian people. Once we feel that the other side is using the negotiation process for deception, we will definitely take appropriate positions. We cannot forget or underestimate the previous experiences. When our diplomats are in negotiating room, our military forces will certainly be more vigilant.
قطعاً مواضع مناسب رو اتخاذ خواهیم کرد.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Secretary General has also called for the renewed international security architecture in response to a rapidly shifting global order.
We are living through a chaotic period of change. Fundamental principles of international law are being brazenly violated. The international order that defined security relations for nearly 80 decades is shifting rapidly. The reckless use of force in many regions is fomenting mistrust, and this in turn is providing fuel for new arms races. This needs to be based on sober analysis of the international situation and grounded in understanding of the benefits of cooperation and the risks of escalation.
US-Iran talks were held previously on February 6th and February 17th in Muscat and Geneva, respectively. As both sides met, Iran held military drills in the Strait of Hormuz and had temporarily closed parts of the strait, whereas USS Abraham Lincoln have been deployed near Iran. A US Air Force C-5M Super Galaxy aircraft has also landed at Royal Air Force in East England on February 20th. Satellite images show that Iran has recently built a concrete shield over a new facility at a sensitive military site and covered it in soil, thereby advancing work at a location reportedly bombed by Israel in 2024 amid tensions with the US. Images show Iran has buried tunnel entrances at a nuclear site bombed by the US during Israel's 12-day war with Iran last year. Fortified tunnel entrances and has repaired missile bases struck in the conflict. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
And viewers, this is the 4th anniversary of Russia-Ukraine conflict today. EU leaders joined Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his wife, Olena Zelenska, in Kiev to honor soldiers killed in the war with Russia as Ukraine marked the 4th anniversary of Moscow's full-scale invasion. The delegation placed candles at a makeshift memorial in the capital city of Kiev and stood in silence alongside senior Ukrainian officials during a ceremony held under tight security. Meanwhile, dozens of dignitaries walked out of Russian ambassador's speech at the UN conference on disarmament in Geneva in support of Ukraine's 4-year-long struggle to resist Russia's invasion. The delegates, including the ambassadors from France, Germany, and Britain, gathered outside the room where the session was taking place and held a Ukrainian flag. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky urged allies to sustain their support as he addressed Coalition of Willing, a video conference on the war's 4th anniversary along with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who joined the conference virtually. In a televised address to the European Parliament to mark the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion, Zelensky urged members of the 27-nation EU grouping to keep defending the European way of life. Meanwhile, an unidentified assailant detonated an explosive device next to a patrol vehicle in Moscow, killing himself and a police officer and leaving 2 others injured. The attack occurred shortly after midnight near the train station in the Russian capital downtown area.
Систем по дну Черного моря. Это так называемый турецкий поток и голубой поток.
We are talking about possible bombing of our gas systems under the Black Sea, namely the so-called Turk Stream and Blue Stream. They cannot calm down. They are desperate to destroy this peaceful diplomatic process. They are trying to provoke an incident to derail everything that, I'll say carefully, has been achieved on this negotiation track. Last year, number of crimes of terrorist nature increased. There is no doubt, as in years, Ukrainian special services and their foreign curators are behind most of them. At the same time, there has been a significant increase in attacks on Russian infrastructure facilities, social and government institutions, and residential buildings using missile weapons and various types of drones.
Ракетных вооружений и беспилотных.
We need Europe in negotiations. We do what we can to involve Europeans as much as possible, and we count on your leadership in all this negotiation process. We will have trilateral format, I think, during this week or 10 days. And what can I say? We need peace, but we have to prepare to any other kind of challenges from Russian side.
And now, let's see what else is making news across the globe in World at a Glance.
Former British ambassador to the US, Peter Mandelson, arrived home after he was released on bail. Mandelson was arrested by London police on suspicion of misconduct in public office, following revelations over his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson, who is 72 years old, was fired from the most prestigious posting in Britain's diplomatic service in September, when the depth of his friendship with Epstein started to become clear. Police earlier this month began a criminal investigation into Mandelson after Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government passed on communications between the former ambassador and Epstein. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was temporarily evacuated from his official residence in Canberra after a bomb threat. Albanese was moved to the lodge while probe carried on. He was relocated to a separate secure location for several hours and returned to the residence. US military forces have seized a sanctioned oil tanker in the Indian Ocean after tracking it from the Caribbean. In a post on X, the US Department of Defense said American personnel boarded the crude oil tanker Bertha overnight. The Pentagon alleged that the vessel was attempting to evade sanctions related to Iran. North Korea has given Kim Jong-un's powerful sister, Kim Yo-jong, a new title this week, Department Director on the Central Committee instead of Deputy Department Director. The news came from state media reports of the top leadership of the ruling Workers' Party meeting. Earlier, North Korea's ruling Workers' Party re-elected Kim Jong-un as General Secretary at the 4th day of its party Congress meetings.
And before we wind up this bulletin, let's also talk about the fury of nature hitting United States. A powerful bomb cyclone has swept across the northeastern United States, triggering states of emergency in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Heavy snowfalls, strong winds, and whiteout conditions have disrupted road, rail, and air travels, with thousands of flights cancelled and nearly 4 lakh homes left without power. Authorities continue to urge residents to avoid non-essential travel as crew works to restore service across the region.
a massive bomb cyclone slams into New York. Blizzard conditions, relentless snowfall, and life brought to near standstill. States of emergency are now in effect in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut as the fast intensifying winter storm continues to impact millions. Snowfall has crossed 60 centimeters in several areas across the Northeast, including parts of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. As snow continues to blanket New York City, sidewalks buried, cars covered, and visibility reduced to half. Sanitation crews and residents are seen clearing pavements as snow piles up rapidly. The storm has severely disrupted air travel. More than 5,500 flights have been cancelled or delayed nationwide, with New York's major airports among the worst affected. The storm has also left nearly 400,000 homes without power across the region, with restoration efforts expected to take days as utility crews battle extreme conditions. But amid this disruption, some tourists are embracing the rare spectacle and finding the cyclone a perfect one to see snow.
I think that's a very special moment. I haven't seen so much snow in 15 years. And coming here, I just actually woke up early this morning to come here to Times Square and see this craziness. I don't know, it's crazy also to see it so empty, but it's nice and special.
We are from France, we are so happy to be in New York, and it's really perfect to see snow.
While tourists are enjoying, residents seem to be worried.
It's probably about the worst I've seen. I mean, I was here at the last big storm. I think that was around 2016 or something, but it wasn't as bad as this. And the problem is when the ploughs come past, they just throw up all the snow and there's going to be a big bank here later, you know? So I'm digging it out now to get rid of some of this.
For many visitors, the blizzard has turned into a once-in-a-lifetime memory, transforming the city into a winter postcard. But officials say the storm is not yet over. The National Weather Service has warned that heavy snowfall and strong winds are expected to continue, with travel disruptions likely to persist. Residents are being urged to stay cautious as the city works to clear roads and restore normalcy. Bureau Report, India Today.